Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is a classical chivalric romance and Arthurian tale from the 1400s. One of the most famous stories in the Arthurian canon. It has no known author, simply being attributed to Anonymous, but that hasn't stopped it from gaining a unique legacy in our culture. One that has been carved out for centuries and retold over and over, and one that several people in my life have remembered since childhood. It has a certain aura to it and importance, one that needs to be handled with care. But of course, I didn't know any of that. I had never read any of the Arthurian canons as a child, and the most I knew about it was absorbed through osmosis. The Sword and the Stone film by Disney, parodies of Arthurian stories in media. I think I might have seen an episode of Franklin about the Green Knight, I don't know. I did enjoy fantasy, but much more young adult focused modern fantasy. And trust me, I wish that author was anonymous. And yet, I didn't need to know anything about the Arthurian canon at all to get excited for this film. All I needed was one teaser trailer. A bit over 1 minute, and the film had my attention. A global pandemic would halt the release from summer of 2020 to 2021, though there would be some benefit from that, as director David Lowery got to change parts of the edit he was dissatisfied with in hindsight. But eventually we got to where we are now. The film is in theaters, and all my expectations from that 2020 teaser and the full trailer from 2 months ago would have to face reality. I went to the theater, sat down to watch it after all this time, and it was the best film I've seen all year. This film feels every bit as epic and adventurous as the classic poem did when it was first written, but with the added benefit of the medium of film and all that can provide. The construction of the film has a flair of gravitas shown in its more abstract presentation. For example, the film has an expert use of silence and pauses. It knows it doesn't have to spoon feed us with this film. The meanings of moments can be seen in the world presented on screen. It doesn't have to over-explain, it can just present itself and we'll know. It's a relationship of trust with the audience to understand subtlety without being vague, and I like that. I also feel it important to say that while this film is true to the Green Knight story, it doesn't feel like it has nothing to say on its own. This may be based on a classic story, but it stands alone. That said, it does represent the themes of the original story very well too, and maybe to their most vivid extent yet. The fear here is palpable, and the message remains here. Honor can come with a cost. Doing the right thing may mean facing life in a way you were unprepared to. It's not just a tale of bravery in the creating of a legend. He's a full human, and that's powerful. Part of the reason why it has that impact is the directing of David Lowery. David Lowery was admittedly a director I didn't have any experience with prior to this movie, but in preparation I did watch every movie of his I could get my hands on, that meaning all but one. Sorry, St. Nick. And I can see the hype surrounding him. He's made some especially powerful and great films, A Ghost Story being a big highlight to me. I get why it grates on some, but I found it incredibly vivid in its emotional power and filmmaking prowess, so it meant a lot to me. And Ain't Them Bodies, Saints, and The Old Man and the Gun were pretty good too. Don't know what happened with Pete's Dragon though. Did not like that one. So walking into this film, while it took me until the week before I saw this movie to watch any of his movies, I did have some solid respect for Lowery as a director. So when I say this is his best directed film yet, no, I mean it. He reunited with cinematographer Andrew Draws Palermo from A Ghost Story, and the shots they create are absolutely staggering in their power. The colors are beautiful, emphasizing the mustard yellow of the cloth Gawain wears throughout the film, with greens and red being a bit more sparse but popping out so much more when you see them. And the shadows. My god, the shadows provide so much texture. And that's just the color. The wide frames, the expertise of each camera movement, particularly the pans, which Lowery has always been great at but shows more excellence here than ever before, it's really quite astonishing. The acting too is phenomenal. I've long been wishing for Dev Patel to get more roles to shine in. It feels like he doesn't often get cast as much as he should, but he always leaves an impression even in his minor roles. But I've been wanting more leading roles from him, and this one delivers. Here, he pulls off maybe the best leading performance of the year. He's just solid and every single moment he's on screen. He breathes so much emotion and humanity into this character and embodies him to his core. But he isn't alone here. Alicia Vikander escapes into her roles as both the Lady and Essel to the point I couldn't even recognize her. Joel Edgerton's a blast, filled with booming fun energy. Sean Harris feels completely at home in his role as the king, seemingly held back at first, but full of emotion the more you look into his eyes. Ralph Ineson is utterly intimidating as the Green Knight, with a seemingly unknowable power and intensity in each word he utters. And I just need to shout out Barry Keoghan here. Barry blew me away in Killing of a Sacred Deer, but I can't lie, his performance here is on a similar level for me, despite having way less screen time. Because every time he was on screen, I had a blast. It's so much fun, and for a role that made up so little runtime, he didn't have to put so much of himself into it, and yet he did, and I'm so grateful for that. And the music is fantastic. Daniel Hart has been Lowry's composer for every film of his. Well, again, except that first one, but again, it's hard to find, doesn't matter. And he's always done a great job, but this is next level. This is fantastic in every way. It's hard to explain, but it's one of those soundtracks that really works with the visuals especially. It's not just well composed, it works with the film where each would be so much weaker without the other. It's just utterly fantastic the way they work with each other in tandem. Really, I can't think of much wrong with this film. Well, except for one thing. One extremely minor thing, admittedly, but still one thing. See, there are moments in this film that reference greater revelations to be had later on. Revelations that are never had. They're had in the poem, sure, but not in the film. The answer is slightly implied, but not in any way where I think it would be clear if we weren't analyzing every single moment for a chance at maybe understanding. And to be clear, I am not against ambiguity. One of my favorite films is 2001: A Space Odyssey, and after 50 years we're still debating what exactly the monolith represented and what the film's ending meant. I don't mind ambiguity. In fact, on its own, I love the film's ending so much. It's perfect and blew me away. The issue is the direct statements of characters that never got fulfilled early on. With those removed, I think I walk out of this film with no reservations about anything in it. Again, it's a really minor critique and not the kind of thing that'd hold this film back majorly for me. In fact, it's honestly pretty negligible, all things considered. It was an adventure, and one or two unresolved minute plot lines are not going to define my experience. The breadth and scope of it all, the beauty, the emotion, the intensity, that's what I'll think of. And days later, that's what lasted with me much more. I still find myself thinking about this film every day since I've seen it. And when a film can hit you like that, the tiniest imperfections don't matter. All that's left is the wonderful experience. Now, off with your head. David Lowery's The Green Knight gets a 9 out of 10.